Hi, Dennis Weiss for Eagle Communications. Welcome to our town. We're at Great Plains Theater, but we don't have our normal backdrop because they're making me a little studio in the dance room. My guest today, Tammy Schumacher. She used to work for me on the commercial sales team. Now she's an author and she's out doing good things for people, and that's what we're going to talk about 25 minutes today. Welcome back, Tammy.
Thank you, Dennis.
My goodness. So, some background for people. So the commercial sales team, we had James Miller and Robert Weatherly on camera a while back. So we talked a little bit about what we do, and we've had Tony on camera. You live in the Hayes area, but you covered really from Trego County to Russell County for me in the commercial sales division. You called on businesses, governments, everybody that wanted services from Eagle Communications for a long time. So it's last April, wasn't it? When did you go away?
It's actually July 7th.
July 7th? And then I hired Nolan in April. Okay, that explains it. But so I remember when you told me that you wanted to go do this, you were kind of nervous. And you told me what you were going to do, and it's so exciting. So this is the first chance we've had to talk about this on camera, so I'm so glad to have it. So I'm going to tell people what I think you do.
Okay.
You share a story that helps them understand that there is a path from pain to joy, and you're not the only one who can take the trip. So that trip's available to other people. And there's a lot behind that. But so when I put this on my calendar, I said, Tammy Schumacher, transform to joy. That's a great thing. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing, writing books, CDs, all the other stuff, but what's the message?
Well, as he said, I used to work for Eagle, and I was actually, when March 17th was just, what, a week ago or so, it reminded me it had been 10 years that I was at Eagle. And the message, you know, you never know why. I never knew why God took me there. And part of that was actually meeting Dennis, because you're such an inspiration for me. I am so honored to be here with you today, Dennis.
I don't think you can say that on camera. I always consider myself more of the valley than the mountaintop.
But to have instrumental people in your life. And I did, not just with Dennis, but other people that I didn't even know that the story I wrote in my book, The Second Start, Finding Joy in the New You, I didn't even know that was a story to write. 4 years ago, I left my husband after 35 years of marriage, 34 years of marriage at that time. And in January, even after divorce papers were filed, I never ever thought we were going to work it out. And somebody else came into my life and said, Tammy, just one more time. Dennis, me saying yes to my marriage, that one last time, was one of the greatest decisions I ever made in my life. Part of my message is, no matter where you're at, no matter what's going on in life, even when you think there's no hope, but you have the right people around you that see your highest and greatest good, that can help you to come up from that. And sometimes you have to go search for those people, which I did. And by the grace of God, sometimes they were just in my life, but didn't know that. And we had the right mentor, that we had the right coach, relationship coach, that helped me and Tim once we said yes, once we took accountability and responsibility for where our marriage was at, for where I was at, for where he was at, and we said yes, we turned it around. And I was sitting with a group of women, because I belong to masterminds, because I always believe in growing yourself, never stop, keep going. And when I was sharing this story to them, all of a sudden, through them comes this force of, you've got to write that book. But it was so much force, I knew it was God coming through them, because it sat me back in the seat. I always talk about listening to the whispers, like listen to the whispers of your soul. But this was more than a whisper. This was a loud voice. So I knew I had to write this book. And within 18 hours, I was introduced to a book coach, because my intention about writing this book was it had to help people. It could not be a poor me, whiny, sappy story. It's not about putting fault on anybody. It's about creating and knowing yourself. Because know thyself, there's so many different little tidbits in history. And know thyself and to thine own self be true are two of the main things that I teach people and help them to understand and realize, whether it's in my coaching business or in a corporate setting where I work with individuals and with groups. And the truth will set you free. I was scared to write this book because
I don't think so.
I'm really raw on this. Let me tell you, some people are like, whoa, can't believe you said that, Tammy. But I'm raw and I'm real. And from what I've been told, that's very rare. But that's just who I am. And with that, it's already helped so many people. But to know, because I have people say, wow, Tammy, if you could do it, I can do it. I read myself in your book, like, whoa, this lady's been through a lot. But to know that there's help out there, and that's another reason why I wrote this book, to know, for people to know, whether it's male or female, but I do work with a majority of women, that they know that they're not alone. You're not alone. I've got your back. I'm here to support you, help you however I can with the best that I can do. But it does take doing the inner work. We've got to do the inner work. That's a must. I believe we can transform into joy. I believe we can transform our lives into a more joyful and create our heaven on earth. That's what I'm doing. That's a continual process, and it's not always easy. And that's another message that it's not always easy, and sometimes it's just downright painful. But we've got to do the work, because emotions buried alive, they never die. You know, we have 4 different bodies. It's not just our physical body. We have an emotional body, mental body, and spiritual body. And so emotions that we don't deal with, that so many times we sweep under the rug. And I've seen that in generations before me.
Right.
I remember that with my grandmother. And I truly believe, because she didn't speak up, and no fault to her, she just didn't know how. You know, she didn't know she could. I didn't know that in my early marriage. You know, I would, and then I'd let things falter, and then I would, and then I'd let things falter. But and then she developed throat cancer. Now, I don't know that that's because she didn't speak up, but with the work I do and how energy is everything, according to Albert Einstein and so many other scientists, if energy is everything, and we don't speak our truth, and we keep that bottled up inside, it goes, and our body holds on to that, and it will fester.
So right now, about 50 people watching TV or watching this on the internet go, oh. So let me back you up a little bit. One of my favorite quotes is, science is the language of God. We don't think about it that way. We see science here and God here, or religion here. But from my side of the street, the God side, science is the language of God. We just haven't learned it all yet, well enough to speak it fluently. Mr. Einstein spoke most of it pretty fluently, but nobody has spoken science completely fluently, or we wouldn't have universities full of physicists still trying to figure it out. But if you can get your mind around that concept, that makes the energy statement you had very easy for people of faith to understand. So in the Old Testament, when God came down and dwelled in the wilderness tabernacle, which is just made out of goat skins. Yes, the Ark of the Covenant is there, made out of wood and gold, but he dwelt there and that was his seat. What was there? It was the energy of God. It was the Spirit of God, is energy. So fire on a bush turns into fire, so we all accept that in religion as a miracle. Well, it's a miracle on one hand, and as the language of God is science, is the energy made that bush combust yet not burn up. It's okay, telling you, it's okay to think this way from a religious standpoint. And if you don't, that's okay for you. So I want to ask you some questions.
Okay.
You worked for me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this about you because you didn't know this about you yet, or this portion of it.
Yeah.
You knew the pain part,
right?
But you didn't know you hadn't worked yourself to the solution point. But you just told me a couple of things. You had to deal with you first.
Yes.
Now I remember some of that. I remember you sitting there and us talking about business situations, and I remember looking at you and I saw moisture in the corner of your eyes, and I know this lady is dealing with pain and dealing with this situation in a deeper way than the situation. So I watched some of that. That wasn't so fun. I was glad I was there and hope I was helpful, but the reality of it is I get to sit here with you and say, it worked out pretty good.
Did.
Worked out pretty good. And I can also say to people watching, if I were talking about Eagle's products and I had James Miller here, I would point at him and go, okay, you want to know all the things you can do with hosted phone? I'll bring this guy and he'll talk to you and you'll understand what you need to do with your phone system. Well, I can look at the people today and go, you know, if you're a woman that has pain in your heart and your life, but you want joy, she's probably a pretty good expert to talk to about that.
I agree with that. And I say that with a humble heart, but to know that I can and do help people, I'm doing my passion now. I am doing the gifts that have been bestowed upon me. And the more I do them, the more they grow. By helping people to transform their lives, by helping them to reconnect to their soul, by actually even pulling back these fragmented soul pieces that have been either taken away from us or I've allowed them to be fragmented by, for instance, simple things like saying yes when I don't mean yes. You know, being a mom, earning over 200 mom years, having 5 children, 11 grandchildren. And, you know, there's times in my life when I would say yes to things. But deep down inside, you know, I wasn't speaking my truth because I really didn't want to do it, whatever that was. So, and that's one of the things, a simple practice that you can implement right now. When you say yes, mean it. If you don't want to do it, then say a true no. You can say it like thank you and yes, and thank you and no. Because just like we were talking about energy, when you put the thank you in front of the no, it's already a positive no you're giving somebody. When, you know, since I'm on this little tip right here, there's another little tip, you know, creating me time. When we start to create me time for ourselves, like to thine own self be true, know thyself. What makes you happy? What, even if it's a one thing, you know, raising 5 kids, there were times when maybe the only space in my house, in my home, was the bathroom. If it's even go lock myself in the bathroom for 5 minutes, but be with me and just breathe. Just breathe. Because the breath reconnects you to the heart. Breath work reconnects you to your heart, which connects you to your soul. And then you listen to the whispers. You know, I was just on a sacred journey trip over in Hawaii, and I swam with the dolphins. But before I did that, I asked, is there a message here? I'm asking the whole trip, even in the airports, what's the message? Am I supposed to get, and I kept hearing, have more fun, Tammy. So even though I'm about transforming the joy, there's even times, no matter how much somebody has grown, no matter how far along in life they are, I've experienced that I still get off the track. But
Everybody does.
Yeah, but having like a set of either, I don't like to say rules, but a set of guidelines. Oh, that's a good word.
The pirates already said that one. More like guidelines, really.
But having like a list that you can go back to. Because speaking of lists, oh, this just popped in my head. So even a year after Tim and I got back together, and I'm living in the house, we had a big upset. Like he was ready to throw in the towel. And then I get mad. I'm like, no way. I did not open my heart back up to this to have you say you're done. So we call up our mentor, our our mentor. He was more than a counselor. And he helped me and Tim through that. And Tim, this simple thing, Tim needed a list that he could refer to of how to make Tammy happy. Because sometimes we get so busy if we don't watch it, but we need to have the support people in our lives or the support different tools. And so he has a list of 10 things that if he gets so busy and off track, he can take out this list. Well, that's what I have too, to help me stay in more joy, to help me keep growing and becoming more. And the more we do that, the more that can filter through, the more that we take care of these things that block us. Because that's what I do. I help people transform into joy. I help them to get through the blocks, those stuckness parts of themselves, to walk through the fear, to embrace what you think may be fear. Like the same day I launched my book, July 7th, and I quit Eagle the same day. Like I jumped off the cliff twice in one day.
Well, you landed well. You landed well. That's all that matters. So, because this is an Our Town show, and I started it, and I never go through a show without talking about economic development or economic reinvestment, revitalization, all that stuff that's important to us at Eagle and me personally. You're going to be amazed. I'm tying these two together. So, the answer to every human problem is solving the human problem, right? So economic development's a human problem, it's caused by humans. But if you look at our society in America, you look at the problems we have crime, we have unemployment, we have despair, we have opioid addiction, you know, you're just pulling the headlines out of the news. You look at all these things, school shootings, what you really have is people with despair,
Yes.
no hope, and they don't see the path in between how to get out of that. Economic development, there is, take this book cover and tear it in half, right between Tim and you, put one in that corner and that corner, you've just caused an economic problem that will cost our society, our country twice as much, maybe more than that, than it would cost to leave this book cover intact. Family problems that flush into two houses, no dad, no mom, all of those things are hugely impactful
Yes.
on everything. So if in Kansas right now, I don't know in how many years we've been in the school lawsuit sets in the Supreme Court, but it's 10, better than 10, I think. So, and we're still talking about how much money. So this last time it went through, and I know personally two of the Supreme Court justices, have a lot of respect for them. So as they're going through their processes, and I've sat and talked to them about these things, to summarize the finding last time around, they said really schools in Kansas are doing okay except for a third of the population that's so underserved. And their results are so low. We need to try to find a way of taking money, applying it to the problem of solving the lower third of these people. The book half is in two corners, or there's no picture on the book at all. even though there may be people there that look like parents, they're not parenting children. They're not helping their children prosper at home. We have over 400 backpacks, I think, in Dickinson County going home with kids on Friday with food in them, because if they don't take the food in a backpack home from school, they will not eat over the weekend. That's not because there's not food. It's because the parenting problem. They had to go from special backpacks for this program into putting the food in the child's backpack because the parents were stealing the food from the children. Sorry to say so, but it's a fact, okay? That's a despair of humans that treat each other that way. So, whatever perspective you come from, if we could solve this problem, so many other problems go away. Care to argue that?
No,
Okay,
I believe that.
that's good, because I'm going to have to tell Brian that we'd start talking about something else. So, you know, isn't it, you were famous at Eagle, and now you're famous all over the world for your laugh, because you're the most enthusiastic laugher in any room.
I'm holding it back right now.
When you give into it, you're the most enthusiastic laugher in any room. Now, through this process, you stumbled into somebody that thought that was a gift.
Yes, I did. This was actually back in 2004, before I even started working for Eagle. I was in a room of 500 people, and Mark Victor Hansen, who is co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and Robert G. Allen, who is very well known in his realm of real estate, and they heard me laughing as they were speaking on a stage, and I shut down the whole, I shut them down. I literally thought I was gonna get thrown out, because Robert on the stage says, "Who's that woman with that laugh out there?" And
because you can't see when the light's in your eyes.
and not knowing, the friend I took was next to me going like this on top of my head as I'm sinking down in my seat. And he's like, "I love your laugh. I want to pay you for your laugh," in front of 500 people. And he's paid me a $20 bill right there. And I had no idea that that was a gift, because I grew up, because my laugh can be very loud, and it's very contagious, and
Can't be spreading fun and mirth around just anywhere, you know.
So out of that whole weekend, because at one point in time, Robert told me, he's like, "Tammy, your laugh is just not a gift, it's a spiritual gift. Make sure you do something with it." That was April of 2003. And in 6 to 8 weeks, I had my first CD called I Crack Me Up. And I actually sent this over to the military, because at that time is when the Iraq war was going on. And I had no idea why. I had no idea why I was supposed to create this. And I sent it over there to a troop that my daughter happened to know the sergeant. And the fact that, and that's why on the back, so I'm going to read you what the sergeant said. I Crack Me Up has been tested under fire, because this was during active wartime. While in active wartime, the United States soldiers in Iraq utilized the profoundness of the unique laughing humor of Tammy Lee to reduce their stress, keep spirits up, and energy high. If it worked for them, it can work for you. And the one thing that he told me was, on a Christmas Eve, they were out doing their mission, and they got into battle, and there was death. 2 of their men perished. The first thing they did when they got back was, "Sarge, where is she? We need her now." And they put in the CD.
So Brian gave me 2 minutes to wrap this thing up. I told you it goes by like that, doesn't it? You gave some sayings. So laughter, the best medicine's one of them. In fact, it's a great performance show, and it's been on the stage here. So the Best Medicine Troupe is what the kids call themselves here, the Best Medicine Troupe, so because they create laughter. Tammy Lee, such a mission you're on. Told you that when you were going to go do it, right? But all of us on the commercial sales team are very proud to see that of what you're accomplishing out in the world on behalf of the mission you're sent on, to create joy and to tell people that they can have it too. We're going to give some contact information that Brian can put on the screen for us. And thanks for coming to Abilene, Kansas, America, and sitting down with me. Been a great guest. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We'll come back and we'll have some fun one of these days, and we'll put the room full of people in here and we'll tear them up, won't we? All right. I'm Dennis Weiss. I work for Eagle Communications. This is Tammy Lee Schumacher. She works for everybody that wants to make that trip from despair to joy. You can get a hold of her with this contact information right here, and you'll have a better day because of it. I'm Dennis Weiss, wishing you a great day.